I've read a lot of breakup stories, but this one is ice cold. OP's girlfriend said, out loud in a crowded bar, "If my ex called tonight, I wouldn't hesitate." And OP didn't argue. He took a promotion in London and vanished. Stay with me, because the text she sent later changed everything. Welcome back to Storystorm Reddit. I cover the wildest Reddit relationship drama. Today's story is about one thing: not cheating, not money, not distance. It's about alignment and a partner treating you as optional. Let's get into it. OP starts by introducing himself. His name is Mike. He is 32. He works in operations management. Mike lives a structured life. Gym at 6. Office by 8. Dinner around 7. He says it is predictable on purpose. He builds systems. He prevents problems from exploding. Okay, that detail matters. Remember it. Now he introduces his girlfriend. Her name is Sarah. She is 27. She works in marketing, mostly remote. They have been together 2 years. Living together for 1 year. Opposites attract, right? Mike is structured. Sarah is social. Always out. Always something happening. And then Mike says the issue had a name. David. Sarah's ex. Sarah told Mike the ex was toxic. Ancient history. Lesson learned.
Done.
But Mike says David kept showing up. Not physically. Mentally. In conversations. In comparisons. In memories. He says it was repetition. Death by 1,000 comments. You're not competing with a person. You're competing with a presence.
Stay with me.
Because the first confrontation was ugly. And what she did afterward is a huge red flag. About 8 months in, Mike brings it up. He says he stayed calm. He said, "I'm not competing with a ghost." Sarah cried. She called him insecure. She said he was trying to isolate her. I'm not gonna lie, that word is a weapon sometimes. Because if Mike is insecure, then Sarah never has to change. See how that works? Then it gets worse. Her friends heard a version of the story. And in that version, Mike was controlling. The group chat courtroom. Everybody's a judge. Nobody was there. Mike says he adjusted.
He stopped arguing.
He started observing. And that observation paid off later, when life handed him a fork in the road. 3 months ago, Mike's company offers a promotion. Director level. More salary. Bigger team. But there is a catch. Relocation to London. Not mandatory. He has time to decide. He tells Sarah the same night. And her first reaction is not excitement. It is silence. Okay, so that silence says a lot. Then Sarah asks, "What does it mean for me?" Mike says, "We can move together." He offers to handle the visa process. That is a serious next step. That is future language. That is commitment language. Sarah says she has to think about it. 2 weeks pass. No real answer. But Sarah updates David on the promotion. She tells Mike that David thinks it is impulsive and dramatic. I had to read that twice. The ex got a vote before the boyfriend got an answer. Here's why this matters. It is not friendship. It is priority. It is influence. And then comes the bar scene. The one that lit the match. What Sarah said next is insane. Last Friday, they go to a bar. It is her friend Chloe's birthday. It is packed. It is loud. Sarah drinks. She is in what Mike calls performance mode. That phrase tells me everything. It means there is an audience. And Sarah plays to it. Someone mentions David. The table lights up. Like celebrity gossip. Sarah leans in. Smiling too wide. Then Sarah says it. Loud enough for everyone. If David called me tonight and said, "Come over," I wouldn't even hesitate. I'd go.
Are you kidding me right now?
In front of the boyfriend. In public. With her friends laughing. Then she adds another line.
She smirks at Mike.
And says, "I'm not cutting ties with my ex, just because Mike feels threatened." The audacity is off the charts. Because she framed it as threatened. Not hurt. Not disrespected. Threatened. Mike does not yell. He does not argue. He looks at her and says, "That's fine. But I won't build a future with someone still building a past." Sarah rolls her eyes. She calls him dramatic. And that is the moment Mike stops negotiating reality. Because what Mike did next was not emotional. It was operational. Mike finishes his drink. He stands up. He grabs his jacket. And he leaves.
No speech.
No parking lot argument. This part sent me. Because leaving calmly is power. It removes their leverage. No scene to rewrite later. He walks 3 blocks. Cold air clears his head. He emails his regional VP. He accepts the London offer. The VP replies fast. Congratulations. HR will begin Monday. Notice something. Mike did not threaten to leave.
He left.
There is a difference. But wait, it gets worse. Because Sarah's text that night?
Pure manipulation.
And that text is still coming. Mike gets home. Sarah is not there yet. He packs an overnight bag. He books a hotel downtown. Just for the weekend. Sarah starts texting around midnight. Where are you? Did you seriously leave? You're being ridiculous. Mike replies once. I'm not arguing in public. We'll talk tomorrow. Sarah responds instantly. And here it is. If this is about David, I already told you. I'm not cutting ties with my ex. I'm not controlled by anyone. There it is. The framing. The rewrite. The control narrative. Mike says that was the real moment, not the bar. That text. Because she reduced respect to control. And while she was stuck in emotions, Mike moved into logistics. Saturday morning, Mike calls HR. They discuss salary, relocation allowance, temporary housing,
Visa till Melina.
Everything is concrete. Everything is structured. Mike says his relationship was not. By noon, he has a start date. 6 weeks out. Then he returns home. And Sarah is already in attack mode. Mike gets back Saturday afternoon. Sarah is on the couch. Arms crossed. Already irritated. She starts fast. You embarrassed me. You made me look wrong. Mike keeps it simple. You said you'd leave with your ex. You said you won't cut ties. That's your choice. I'm not negotiating that. Sarah laughs. Sharp. Dismissive. So, you're punishing me? Mike says, no.
I'm adjusting accordingly.
That line is terrifyingly calm. And it is completely fair. Then he tells her. He accepted the promotion. Sarah looks rattled. You didn't talk to me. Mike says, I did. For 2 weeks. Now here is the part you need to watch. Sarah does not choose Mike. She chooses delay. Sarah tries to pivot. Long distance. I need time. You're rushing. She still does not say, I'm coming. She still does not say, I choose us. It is always time. And David stays in orbit. And that is where I'll pause part 1. Because in part 2, Mike starts the clean split. Passwords. Accounts. Blocking. Then the one-way flight. Then London. Then the call that ends it for good. Before part 2, comment this. Is Mike cold, or is he finally healthy? Reply. Send part 2, and I'll drop the second half immediately.
All right.
You asked for the rest. So here we go. What happens next is not a screaming breakup. It is a controlled shutdown. Mike says that night, while Sarah was in the shower, he starts separating practical things. Important documents. Passport. Banking info. The stuff that becomes a mess later. And honestly, this is where you can tell how his brain works. He is not spiraling. He is not begging. He is not doing that thing where you keep explaining your pain, hoping the other person suddenly grows empathy. He is preparing for the reality he already sees. He changes passwords on his accounts. He removes her access to the shared streaming services he paid for. And I know somebody will call that petty. But here's the thing. Once a relationship turns into blame and public spin, shared access becomes shared leverage. This is not romance anymore. This is risk management. Then Sunday morning, he transfers his half of the joint savings back. He calls it a clean split. He leaves a spreadsheet showing the math. And that detail is savage in the quietest way. Because a spreadsheet is not an argument. It is not my feelings versus your feelings. It is a receipt. It is closure you can audit. It says, I did not steal. I did not punish. I did not play games. I simply ended my participation. Sarah still does not seem to grasp the finality.
Not yet.
Or maybe she does. But she thinks he will blink first. Then Monday morning, Sarah leaves for coffee with Chloe. And Mike blocks her on everything except text. Not as a power move. As damage control. Because Sarah lives online. Instagram stories.
Group chats.
Constant commentary. She thrives on instant feedback. And Mike knows something that is painfully true. If he stays available on those channels, he will be dragged into narrative warfare. Screenshots. Half-truths. Friends chiming in. And Mike forced to defend his boundary, like it is a crime. He says he is not interested in a group chat courtroom. And that is so real. Because once your relationship becomes content for your partner's friends, you are already losing. By Monday afternoon, Sarah sends the first serious text. Are you seriously moving to London over one joke? Mike says he stared at it for a minute. Then he replied, it wasn't a joke. It was clarity. And I want to stop on that line. Because some people hide behind jokes the way cowards hide behind curtains. They test disrespect. If you react, you are sensitive. If you don't react, they push further. A joke is supposed to entertain both people. This did not entertain Mike. It humiliated him. It wasn't a joke. It was an admission. Sarah replies again. So, you're throwing away 2 years because I won't erase someone from my life again. And there it is again. The framing. Notice how she never says, I shouldn't have said that. She says, you're wrong for responding. Mike replies carefully. He says he is not asking her to erase anyone. He is saying he will not build a future with someone who openly says she would leave him for her ex. No response for an hour. Then Sarah flips tactics. David is just a friend. You're insecure. That word again. Insecure. It is convenient. Because if Mike is insecure, Sarah's behavior never needs to change. And that is the core of manipulation. Shift the problem. Rename the injury. That evening, Sarah comes home acting normal. Almost overly normal. She asks what he wants for dinner. She talks about work. Like the last 72 hours did not happen. And, I'm not gonna lie, that reset behavior creeps me out. Because it is not peace. It is denial. It is an attempt to slide back into routine without accountability. Mike does not play along. He tells her HR is sending relocation documents soon. He says he will likely fly out in 4 weeks to start apartment hunting. Sarah blinks.
Slowly. Processing.
Then she says, so what? You expect me to just drop my whole life and follow you? Mike stays calm. He says, no. I expected my partner to be excited about building a bigger life together. That's different. That line is everything. Because he is not demanding sacrifice. He is asking for partnership. Sarah scoffs. She says London is not a fairy tale. He is romanticizing it. And that is another defense. Make the future look stupid. So you don't have to admit you are afraid to choose it. Then she says, and what if I don't want to go? Mike says, then you don't go. And the silence after that matters. Because she is waiting for him to say, then I won't go either. She is waiting for proof she still controls the outcome. And Mike does not give it. Later that night, Sarah is in the bedroom on FaceTime. Mike says he is not trying to eavesdrop. But the apartment is small. He hears David's name. He hears Sarah say, he's overreacting. He thinks I'd actually leave with you. Then she laughs. And that laugh is not small. That laugh is the sound of disrespect settling into routine. Mike walks into the doorway. Sarah looks up annoyed. She says, can you give me privacy? Mike nods.
Sure.
Then he grabs his laptop and goes into the kitchen. And he books a one-way ticket to London for the following Friday. One way. Not exploratory. Not just in case. Not, maybe I'll come back. One way. And if you think that's dramatic, ask yourself this. What else is there to do when your partner tells her ex your relationship problems, then laughs about you to him, then calls you insecure for reacting? At that point, you're not debating boundaries. You're debating reality. And Mike is done with that. Tuesday morning, Sarah tries another angle. She says, "You're acting like you're surprised I'm about to lose." Mike sets his coffee down and says, "No, I'm acting like someone who won't compete for a seat he already occupies." That line is cold, but it is correct. If you are in a relationship, you should not have to audition. By midweek, Mike says the apartment feels like a waiting room. Two people sharing space that is already splitting. Then Thursday evening, Sarah says, "If you walk away over this, don't expect me to chase you." Mike replies, "I'm not asking you to." And I know some people hear that and think it is pride. But I hear something else. I hear acceptance. You cannot build a stable relationship with a person who treats choosing you like a negotiation. Friday morning arrives quietly. No screaming match. No dramatic breakup speech. Just silence that feels permanent. Mike's flight is at 6:40 p.m. He packs most of his essentials the night before. 2 suitcases. 1 carry-on. Important documents scanned and backed up. Of course they are. That is who he is. Methodical. Prepared. Forward-facing. Sarah watches him zip the larger suitcase from the kitchen doorway. She says, "So, this is really happening?" Mike says, "Yeah." Sarah leans against the frame, arms crossed. Then she says, "You're seriously choosing a job over us." That is how she needs to frame it. Because if it is job versus love, Sarah is the victim. Mike does not take the bait. He says, "I'm choosing a future that makes sense." Sarah shakes her head. This is insane. Couples work through things. They don't just run. Interesting word, considering she literally said she would run to David. Mike keeps his tone even. He says, "I offered you a path forward with me. You said you needed time. I don't build long-term plans with people who are undecided about me." And that sentence punches. Because it is true. Sarah gets angry. She says, "You're acting like I cheated." Mike says, "No. I'm acting like you made it clear I'm optional." Optional. That is the real wound. Around noon, Sarah tries softening. She says, "You know I didn't mean it like that, right? I was joking." Everyone jokes about their exes sometimes. Mike says, "Not like that. Not in front of your partner. Not if you respect them." Sarah looks frustrated, like he is refusing to enter the version of reality she prefers. By 4:30 p.m., Mike's Uber is downstairs. Sarah follows him to the door. She says, "So what? You're just leaving everything." Mike says, "No. I'm leaving misalignment." That word irritates her. Because it's not an insult. It's a diagnosis. She says, "You're so dramatic." Mike grabs his jacket from the hook by the door. The same jacket he grabbed at the bar. Like life is bookmarking the moment. Then Mike turns to her and says, "If you want to come to London, you'll need to decide without David in the picture. I won't compete. I won't negotiate that." Sarah does not answer immediately. She asks, "What happens if I don't?" Mike opens the door and says, "Then you stay here." And he walks out.
No hug. No kiss.
No promise to call. In the Uber, his phone buzzes twice before they hit the highway. "You're really doing this." Then 5 minutes later, David texts Mike, "You're overreacting, and I want you to clock how insane that is." The ex is now texting the boyfriend to manage the boyfriend's reaction. That is not friendship. That is interference. Mike mutes the thread. At the airport, he turns on airplane mode and lets the silence settle. Mike says it was not anger he felt.
It was clarity.
8 hours later, crossing the Atlantic, he is not thinking about whether Sarah will chase him. He is thinking about whether she will even notice the space he left. And then he drops the line that is basically the thesis of this whole story. If someone believes you're replaceable, the only way to test that belief is to remove yourself. That is not revenge. That is self-respect. Now, Mike lands in London. He says London feels colder than Chicago. Not technically. Emotionally. HR set him up in a temporary flat in Canary Wharf.
Clean.
Minimal. Efficient. No shared memories in the walls. He keeps his phone on airplane mode the first night. He sleeps 8 straight hours. When he turns the phone back on the next morning, notifications are stacked. Texts from Sarah. Missed calls. Unknown numbers. And this is where most people crumble. Most people scroll. Most people look for regret. Most people need to see "I'm sorry." Mike does not open a single one. He stares at the screen for about 10 seconds. Not angry. Not hurt. Finished. He says there's a difference between needing closure and already having it. Sarah made her position clear multiple times. She was not cutting ties with her ex. She was not choosing definitively. She believed Mike was overreacting. She believed Mike would not actually leave. So he left. Mike does not scroll to see if her tone changed. He does not look for apologies. Because he understands something most people learn too late. If clarity only shows up after you remove yourself, it is usually temporary. Then Mike blocks her. Not just her number. Everything. Instagram. WhatsApp.
Linkage.
Even email. Complete severance. Not dramatic. Not emotional.
Clean.
Because he is not going to build a life in a new country while monitoring whether someone back home suddenly realizes his value. That is not how momentum works. Once he blocks everything, the silence becomes immediate.
No vibration.
No screen lighting up. No half-written messages waiting for him to engage. Mike says it feels lighter than expected. He makes coffee in the small kitchen and sits by the window, watching the Docklands wake up. People in suits moving with purpose. Trains sliding past. A city that does not care about his personal drama. That is grounding. Around noon, Mike gets an email from building management in Chicago. Lease update confirmation. Sarah must have contacted them. Mike replies with his official notice of relocation and confirms his name will be removed at the end of the month. Practical steps. Final steps. He says he did not tell her to move to London. He did not offer conditions. He did not ask her to choose. Because she already had. By early afternoon, Mike walks to the office to pick up his access badge ahead of Monday. The receptionist smiles, hands him the envelope, welcomes him to the team. No one there knows he just dismantled a 2-year relationship 4,000 miles away. They just see someone stepping into a bigger role. And Mike says, that was the point. If Sarah wants to stay wrapped in the orbit of an ex, that is her decision. Mike is not going to stand nearby, hoping gravity shifts. He already moved. The first week in London is structured chaos. New team. New systems. New expectations. Mike walks into a department that had been running on autopilot and is now being told someone from the US is taking over. He does not overshare. He does not explain why he relocated so fast.